Hello and Happy New Year. I'd like to start this editor's note by saying that joining a new industry is humbling. I became editor of R&R just over 6 months ago now, holding a resume ripe with journalism, content management, and B2B experience. But restoration was nowhere to be found. Naturally, as I immerse myself, I find myself taking mental notes of overarching themes. So sometimes I'm drawing parallels with different industries, others I'm spotting unique attributes. And a few of top of mind characteristics I noticed in the early weeks, to give you an example, would be the workforce challenges, the M&A activity, and the complex intersection of restorer, insured, and insurer. And this brings me to a recent Ask the Expert recording with Michael Dakduke, CEO of the IICRC, during which the new kid on the block topic came up. Michael joined the restoration industry just 2 years ago, significantly further back than I did, but recently enough to be considered a relative newbie, we agreed. So, mindful of our shared recent outsider status and great deal of responsibility to restorers in our roles, I took the opportunity to ask Michael, 2 years in, what's your take on the restoration industry? I'd kind of been thinking of engaging with the exercise of listing and sharing my newcomer notables for a while. And lucky for me, as Michael answered my question, he put those and more observations into words. So, 6 months into my time as R&R editor, and as we kick off a new year, here are some of the key themes Michael highlighted that I consider restoration industry first impressions of my own. Theme one, a hidden gem. Michael noted, quote, the public at large really doesn't know much about the restoration industry. It's sort of an unknown, end quote. Similarly, in R&R's restoration industry SWOT analysis published in December, check it out. Restoring Success columnist Lisa Lavender wrote, quote, unless you are a second or third generation restorer, who grows up wanting to be a restorer? They don't know it exists as a profession with opportunity and reward. It is not recognized as a career path. It is more something that people fall into. The public does not know of the science, skills, credentialing, etc. of a restorer. The lack of understanding and recognition of those outside the industry will remain a threat if the lack of awareness persists, end quote. Theme two, a shortage of stats. Michael said in our interview, quote, in everything I've researched on it, you can't find breakouts of the restoration industry. For example, the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the United States tracks projections for jobs. Well, there's nothing on the restoration industry. So there are a lot of question marks, which means there are a lot of opportunities as well, end quote. Theme three, a moment for molding. Michael noted, quote, even though it's been around a while, it's still very early on in the maturation process, end quote. That was referring to the restoration industry. He continued, quote, I think the fact that there are not very many regulations on it or laws associated with it, that tells me we're still in the early stages because the larger an industry becomes, it's inevitable that there will be more focus on it. So that means we're kind of on the cusp of something, which is exciting, and we can shape it. Because in many of the places I've worked before, in the life cycle, you're already in the phase where everything's been developed, so to speak, and you're trying to make tweaks and influence changes on what's already been created. So this is unique. It's almost a clean slate, end quote. And theme four, the last one I'll highlight here, an abundance of engagement. Michael said, quote, sometimes in nonprofits, you have a challenge of volunteerism. We don't have that problem. We have so many subject matter experts and individuals that do want to get involved and give back, end quote. So that marks the end of the first impression list. Let me know if anything connects in an email. But now I want to add another layer to this editor's note, which is an overarching theme of my interview with Michael, as you may have gleaned from the quotes I shared. And that was reframing challenges as opportunities. This brings me back to where I started with this editor's note. Joining a new industry is humbling. Being an outsider in an environment teeming with insiders who've been ingrained for years and know it like the back of their hand is humbling. But to pull from Michael again and flip challenge into opportunity, I believe that just as growing up in this industry or spending decades here brings irrefutable value, an outside in lens also does. I believe fresh perspective has the potential to breathe new life into established entities when harnessed properly and to fuel meaningful innovation. In a 2021 Harvard Business Review article on how outsiders become game changers, professors Gino Catani and Simone Feriani wrote, being less tied to the norms and standards to which insiders conform, outsiders recognize solutions that escape incumbents' attention. Outsiders typically innovate by acting on insights and experiences that are new to the context they enter, but familiar to the context they come from. End quote. So I intend to use that research and that spirit as inspiration and instruction in my role with R&R moving ahead. I intend to embrace my lack of industry experience as an advantage, to question assumptions and to introduce fresh ideas and approaches. And I also intend to bring in experts, for example, from other fields who are finding solutions to challenges this great industry hasn't yet resolved. So I'm curious, are you embracing an outside in perspective, even if you're a seasoned industry veteran? Are you taking inspiration from the progress other industries are making and learning from their mistakes? Are you embracing outsiders in your recruiting endeavors? And are you welcoming outside of the box ideas and approaches from employees of all backgrounds in your daily operations? If so, have you found success embracing the outside? Reach out to me at kingv@bmpmedia.com. If so, I'd love to hear from you and consider sharing your story. Also, feel free to send your first impressions of the restoration industry my way, whether you're a newbie now and they're fresh, or you've been at this for decades and remember what stood out to you back then. That is all for this time. Happy New Year.